Welcome, dear friend. Tonight we begin a new journey together, a journey into the parables of the Buddha. The Buddha often taught through stories, not long histories or complicated arguments, but through simple parables, short, vivid images that carried truth within them. Like seeds carried by the wind, these parables found their way into the hearts of listeners, where they took root and grew. You will hear some of these parables tonight. They may seem small, like a single grain of rice, a lamp in the dark, or a lotus rising from the mud. Yet within their simplicity lies the depth of oceans. They speak of life and death, of sorrow and joy, of ignorance and awakening. And they do so with a gentleness that asks nothing from you, except that you listen. There is nothing more you must do now. The day is over. The tasks have been set aside. This moment is yours. Allow yourself to rest, to be still, to open your heart as though opening a window to the night air. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, breathe in and breathe out. With each breath, feel your body soften. Your shoulders relax. Your hands rest quietly. Your feet grow heavy, sinking into stillness. The weight you carried through the day slips away, like dust washed from a mirror. Breathing in, you are here. Breathing out, you are free. The parables of the Buddha are not commands or doctrines. They are invitations, inviting you to look, to see, to reflect. They are like a raft, helping you cross a river. Once across, you no longer need to carry the raft. You set it down with gratitude. Tonight, as you listen, you do not need to solve anything. You do not need to hold on tightly. Allow the parables to drift through you, like clouds across a calm sky. They will touch you where they must, in ways you may not even notice, and that is enough. Imagine now that you are sitting beside a quiet river. The air is cool, the water flows gently, and above you, the moon hangs bright and serene. In this stillness, the parables will begin to appear, like lanterns set upon the water, each carrying a light, each carrying a lesson. All you must do is watch. All you must do is listen. All you must do is rest. Take another slow breath in and let it out softly. Breathing in, you welcome peace. Breathing out, you release restlessness. Breathing in, you open to wisdom. Breathing out, you drift into calm. Tonight, we will journey through 14 parables. Each one is simple. Each one is profound. Each one, like a finger pointing to the moon, does not demand you stare at the finger, but guides you to look beyond, to the vastness of truth. So, let us begin. The first parable awaits, a story of a tiny mustard seed and the weight of a mountain, showing how suffering, though immense, can be transformed by wisdom and compassion. The mustard seed and the mountain. One day, the disciples gathered around the Buddha, their hearts heavy. Many had been speaking among themselves of the vast suffering in the world. They had seen famine in villages, sickness in homes, grief on every face. One monk, troubled by these sights, approached the Buddha and asked, "Blessed One, the suffering of the world feels like a mountain. It is so immense, so heavy, so endless. How can one small heart bear it? How can one person ever hope to change it?" The Buddha listened in silence for a while. Then he smiled gently and replied, "Let me tell you a parable. Once, there was a mighty mountain, taller than clouds, heavier than the earth beneath it. Its slopes were steep, its peak hidden in mist. No human hand could move it. No strength of armies could shift it. People looked at it with despair and said, 'This mountain will stand forever.' One day, a small bird came to the mountain. In its beak, it carried a single mustard seed. The seed was tiny, almost weightless, barely seen against the vast stone. The bird placed the seed upon the mountain's side and flew away. The next day, the bird returned with another seed, and the next, and the next. Day after day, year after year, the bird continued. People laughed. "Foolish bird. Do you think you can cover a mountain with your seeds? Do you think you can change what cannot be changed?" But the bird did not argue. It simply returned, carrying another seed. Over time, rains fell, winds blew, and the seeds began to sprout. Tiny shoots of green appeared, then leaves, then flowers. Life spread across the mountain's face. Where once there was only bare stone, now there were fields of mustard plants, swaying in the breeze, glowing yellow beneath the sun. The mountain remained vast, but it was no longer barren. It was softened, transformed, not by force, not in an instant, but by the quiet persistence of one small bird. The Buddha looked at his disciple and said, "So it is with suffering. Alone, your effort may seem small, like a mustard seed against a mountain. But with patience, with persistence, with compassion, each act of kindness transforms the world. Do not ask if you can remove all suffering. Ask only if you can bring one seed of compassion today. In time, the mountain will bloom." The disciples bowed their heads, their hearts lighter. They understood that the work of compassion is not to end all suffering at once, but to keep planting seeds, one by one, breath by breath, moment by moment. Dear friend, this parable is for us as well. Sometimes the suffering of the world feels like too much. We see wars, sickness, loneliness, grief, and we wonder, what can I do? I am only one person. The Buddha reminds us, you need not lift the mountain. You need only bring a seed. Each word of kindness, each act of patience, each gesture of care is a mustard seed placed upon the mountain. Alone, it may seem small, but together, they create fields of light. Take a slow breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion. Exhale despair. With each breath in, imagine holding a mustard seed of kindness in your palm. With each breath out, imagine placing it gently upon the mountain of suffering. Perhaps tonight you carry burdens that feel heavy as stone. Let this story remind you, even the smallest act can begin to transform them. You do not need to solve everything. You need only take one breath, one step, one seed of compassion at a time. Rest now, dear friend. Breathing in, you receive kindness. Breathing out, you give kindness. Breathing in, you are part of the great transformation. Breathing out, you let the mountain bloom. The disciples who heard this parable never forgot it. They carried mustard seeds in their minds and hearts, planting compassion wherever they went. And slowly, the world around them changed. Not because they conquered suffering, but because they softened it with love. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let this image cradle you. A vast mountain covered with golden blossoms, swaying in the gentle wind. You too are part of this blooming. You too carry seeds of compassion. Now, dear friend, let us continue. The next parable awaits, the story of the poisoned arrow, reminding us that wisdom lies not in endless questions, but in tending to what heals. The parable of the poisoned arrow. One quiet afternoon in the monastery, the disciples gathered in the shade of tall trees. The sound of birds echoed softly, and the air was calm. Yet among the monks, one man sat restlessly, his brow furrowed, his heart heavy with doubt. When the gathering ended, he approached the Buddha, bowed, and said, "Blessed One, I am troubled. There are so many questions I cannot answer. Is the universe eternal, or will it end one day? Does the soul live on after death, or vanish completely? What is the purpose of life? What is beyond this world? Unless I know these answers, I cannot find peace." The other monks listened, curious. They too had sometimes wondered, all eyes turned to the Buddha. The Buddha sat silently for a long moment. His gaze was steady, his presence calm. At last, he said softly, "Let me tell you a parable. Once, there was a man who was struck by a poisoned arrow. It pierced his chest, and poison began to spread. His pain was sharp, his breath short, his life slipping away. His friends rushed to fetch a healer, but when the healer arrived, bow and tools in hand, the wounded man cried out, "Wait! Do not touch the arrow yet. First I must know, who shot it? Was he a noble or a servant? Was he tall or short, dark or fair? From what village did he come? What kind of bow did he use? Bamboo or oak? What feathers guided the arrow? Peacock or vulture?" The healer shook his head. "None of this matters now. If we do not remove the arrow quickly, the poison will kill you." But the man insisted, "No, I will not allow you to treat me until I have all my questions answered." And so, while he delayed, the poison spread further. His body grew weaker, his vision blurred, and before any answer could be given, he died. His life ended not by the arrow alone, but by his refusal to act where it mattered. The Buddha looked at the monk with compassion. "So it is with your questions. You ask whether the universe is eternal, whether life continues after death. But while you ask, suffering pierces you. Birth, aging, sickness, death. These are the arrows in your flesh. Should you not first remove the poison? Should you not first tend to the wound of the heart?" The monk bowed his head, tears forming in his eyes. He understood. The path was not to solve every riddle of existence, but to heal the suffering that was here, now. Dear friend, this parable is also for us. How often do we wait for certainty before allowing ourselves peace? We demand answers. Why did this happen to me? What will tomorrow bring? What lies beyond this life? Yet while we demand, the poison of sorrow and fear spreads. The Buddha reminds us, healing does not begin with all the answers. Healing begins with presence, with breathing, with compassion, with release. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out softly. Again, inhale healing. Exhale doubt. With each inhale, imagine gently pulling the arrow of suffering from your heart. With each exhale, imagine peace flowing in, soothing the wound. This does not mean questions are wrong, but wisdom knows which questions serve healing and which only delay it. You do not need to know the name of the archer. You need only remove the arrow. Perhaps tonight you carry arrows of your own. Fear of loss, regret from the past, wounds not yet healed. Let this story remind you. Do not wait for for all answers. Begin the healing now. With each breath, the poison leaves you. With each breath, peace returns. The disciples never forgot this parable. When their minds filled with doubt, they remembered the poisoned arrow. They turned back to what mattered most, the practice of compassion, the presence of breath, the path of release. So tonight, let this story cradle you. You are not lost in endless riddles. You are here, breathing. You are healing. You are whole. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the raft, reminding us that even the teachings of the Buddha are like tools, precious for crossing the river, but not to be carried forever. The parable of the raft. One morning, after the alms round, the monks gathered around the Buddha beneath the shade of tall sal trees. Their robes were simple, their bowls empty after the meal, their faces calm. The Buddha looked upon them and said, "Monks, I will speak to you today of the Dharma and how it is to be held, not as a weight, but as a path. Listen well, for I will tell you a parable. Long ago, a man came upon a vast river. Behind him lay a dangerous land, barren, thorny, filled with wild beasts and fear. Ahead, across the water, he saw a far shore, green with trees, rich with fruits, safe and inviting. The river, however, was wide and strong. Its currents rushed, its depths were unknown. There was no bridge, no boat, no ferryman to help. The man thought, if I stay here, I suffer, but if I can cross to that far shore, I will be safe. What can I do? He gathered branches from fallen trees, reeds from the riverbank, and vines to bind them. Slowly, with care and effort, he built a raft. When it was finished, he pushed it into the water, climbed upon it, and paddled with his hands. The river fought him. The current tried to sweep him away. At times, he feared the raft would break apart, but he held on. Stroke by stroke, breath by breath, he moved forward. At last, exhausted but alive, he reached the far shore. He stood upon solid ground, safe at last. Now, the man looked at the raft. He thought to himself, "This raft has saved me. Without it, I would still be trapped on the other shore. Should I lift it onto my back and carry it with me as I continue my journey? Or should I set it down here, grateful, and walk on freely? What would you do, dear friend?" The Buddha looked at the monks and said, A wise man leaves the raft behind. He honors it. He remembers it with gratitude, but he does not cling to it. To carry it would be a burden. To let it go is freedom. So it is with my teachings. The Dharma is like a raft. It is meant to help you cross the river of suffering, to reach the far shore of peace. But once you have crossed, you do not need to cling to the raft. Even to the Dharma, do not cling. Hold it as a tool, not as a chain. The monks bowed deeply. They understood. The teachings were not possessions to hoard, not dogmas to defend, but a path to be walked, a guide to be used and released. Dear friend, this parable is for us as well. How often do we clinging to possessions, to identities, to beliefs, even to teachings themselves? We mistake the raft for the shore, the path for the goal. But the Buddha reminds us, the goal is freedom, not clinging. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale, guidance. Exhale, attachment. With each inhale, imagine yourself climbing onto a raft, steady and strong. With each exhale, imagine the river carrying you gently, safely to the far shore. Breathing in, you feel supported. Breathing out, you let go. Perhaps there are things in your life you have carried too long. Old fears, old beliefs, old wounds. They may have served you once. They may have helped you survive. But now, perhaps it is time to set them down. To carry them further is heavy. To release them is freedom. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you honor what has helped you. Breathing out, you release it with gratitude. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When their minds grew rigid, clinging even to the words of the Buddha, they recalled the raft. They practiced not to grasp, but to walk lightly. Not to hold tighter, but to let go. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself standing on the far shore. The river flows behind you. The raft rests upon the bank. You bow to it with gratitude, then walk forward. Your steps light, your heart unburdened. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the finger pointing to the moon, reminding us not to mistake the sign for the truth it reveals. The finger pointing to the moon. One evening, after the day's alms round, the disciples gathered beneath the cool shade of sal trees. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the first light of the moon was rising in the eastern sky. The air was calm, filled with the hum of insects, and the fragrance of jasmine drifted through the garden. Yet within the assembly, restlessness stirred. Some disciples had begun to argue among themselves about the meaning of the Buddha's words. One said firmly, "The Dharma lies in the verses we recite each morning. To chant them perfectly is to know the truth." Another shook his head. "No, it is not in chanting. It is in meditation. Only when the mind is still do we find the Dharma." Still another insisted, "You are both wrong. The Dharma lives in the rules, in rituals, in discipline. Without them, there is no path." The voices grew tense, each man certain of his own view. The Buddha listened quietly, his eyes resting on the brightening sky. At last, he lifted his hand and pointed upward. The disciples followed his gaze. The moon had risen, full and radiant, casting silver light across the earth. "Tell me," the Buddha said gently, "what do you see?" "The moon, blessed one," they replied. "And how did you see it?" he asked. "Because you pointed, Master." The Buddha smiled softly. "Yes, my finger shows you the moon, but remember this, the finger is not the moon. If you stare only at the finger, you will never see the sky. If you cling only to the words, the forms, the rituals, you will miss the truth. The Dharma is like the moon, vast, luminous, boundless. The teachings are like the finger, guides to help you see. Honor the guide, but look beyond it." The disciples grew quiet. The fire of argument faded. They realized they had been staring at the finger, forgetting the moon. Dear friend, this parable is for us as well. How often do we cling to words, to symbols, to appearances, and forget what lies beyond? We treat the recipe as if it were the meal. We mistake the map for the journey. We cling to the finger and forget the moon. The Buddha reminds us, teachings are doors, not walls. They are tools to point us beyond themselves. To stop at the finger is to miss the beauty of the sky. To stop at words is to miss the silence that holds them. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out softly. Again, inhale clarity. Exhale confusion. With each breath in, imagine the vast sky opening above you. With each breath out, imagine the moon shining bright, serene, eternal. Breathing in, you look beyond words. Breathing out, you rest in truth. Perhaps in your life, you have held tightly to rules, to opinions, to the exact way things should be. And perhaps, too, you have felt frustration when others did not see as you did. Let this story remind you, the essence is not in the forms, but in what they point to. Love is beyond words. Peace is beyond rituals. Truth is beyond labels. Rest here for a moment. Breathing in, you see the moon. Breathing out, you release the finger. Breathing in, you touch wisdom. Breathing out, you sink into peace. The disciples who heard this parable carried it within their hearts. When they chanted, they remembered the verses are a finger pointing. When they meditated, they remembered stillness is a finger pointing. When they followed rituals, they remembered discipline is a finger pointing. None were the moon itself, yet each pointed toward it. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself beneath the wide night sky. The moon glows above, clear and full. You are not lost in arguments, not trapped in words. You are gazing directly at truth, radiant, silent, eternal. Now, dear friend, let us move onward. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the lamp in the darkness, teaching us that even the smallest light of wisdom can banish the deepest night. The lamp in the darkness. One evening, after the alms round, the monks gathered around the Buddha. The day was ending, and the sky was painted with the colors of twilight. As the shadows lengthened, a soft hush fell over the monastery. The disciples sat in quiet expectation, waiting for the Blessed One to speak. The Buddha looked upon them and said, "Monks, imagine a man who lives in complete darkness. For him, every step is uncertain. He stumbles, he falls, he injures himself. Fear grips him, for he cannot see where to go. Now imagine that someone places a small lamp in his hand. The lamp is not great like the sun, yet it is enough to show him the path before him. With it, he walks safely, finds food, avoids danger. Though the darkness is vast, the lamp protects him." The disciples leaned closer, listening as the Buddha's voice grew gentle. So it is with wisdom. Ignorance is like a great night covering the world. Beings wander, confused and afraid, stumbling in their blindness. But even a small light of understanding, even a single spark of compassion, can guide the way. Do not think it useless, because it is small. A single lamp can dispel great darkness. To deepen his point, the Buddha told them a story. Long ago, a poor traveler made his way through a thick forest. As the sun fell, darkness swallowed the trees. The path disappeared, and the cries of unseen creatures filled the air. The traveler's heart pounded. Every branch seemed a threat, every rustle a danger. He stumbled and fell, scraping his knees, unsure if he would ever find his way. Then he remembered the small clay lamp he carried. His hands trembled as he struck a spark. A tiny flame flickered, so small he feared the wind might take it. Yet, even so, the shadows near him fled. He could see the ground at his feet, the curve of the path, the branches above. Though the forest around him remained dark, his fear softened. Step by step, guided by the lamp, he walked through the night. By dawn, he emerged safely into the open fields. Looking back, he realized it was not great power that saved him, but the small light he had carried all along. The Buddha turned to the monks and said, "Monks, the Dharma is that lamp." The night of ignorance may be vast, but it takes only a single flame to see your way. Walk with that light, and step by step, you will reach peace. The monks bowed deeply, their hearts comforted. Dear friend, this parable is also for us. How often do we feel surrounded by darkness, uncertainty, fear, sorrow? We think, unless all is clear, I cannot rest. Unless the night disappears, I cannot walk. Yet the Buddha reminds us, you do not need the sun to move forward. You need only one light, here and now. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale light. Exhale fear. With each inhale, imagine a warm lamp glowing in your hands. With each exhale, imagine the shadows receding, the path becoming clear. Breathing in, you are guided. Breathing out, you are safe. Perhaps tonight, you feel lost in a forest of your own, trapped by worries, heavy with sorrow, uncertain of tomorrow. Let this story remind you, a single act of kindness, a single mindful breath, a single moment of compassion is enough to guide your next step. You do not need to see the whole journey. You need only the lamp in your hand. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you hold the light. Breathing out, you follow its glow. The disciples who heard this parable carried it in their hearts. When despair pressed upon them, they remembered the lamp. They did not wait for all answers, nor for the night to vanish. They simply carried their small light forward, step by step, and the path revealed itself. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself holding a lamp, its glow warm and steady. Around you, the forest is quiet. The darkness is vast, but you are not afraid. Each breath is a step. Each step is safe, and the dawn waits gently ahead. Now, dear friend, let us move onward. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the burning house, where children play in danger and compassion calls them to safety. The burning house. One day, the Buddha told his disciples a story. His voice was calm, his words slow, carrying both urgency and compassion. Once, there was a wealthy man who lived in a large old house. The house had many rooms, filled with furniture, toys, and treasures. His children loved to play there, running from room to room, laughing without care. But the house was old, and one day fire broke out. Flames spread quickly, smoke filled the halls, and the roof began to collapse. The father saw the danger and cried out, "Children, come out quickly, the house is burning." But the children were lost in their games. They laughed, chasing their toys, too absorbed to hear the warning. They did not understand fire. They did not see danger. The father's heart pounded with fear. If they remain, they will perish. How can I save them? He called again, but still they ignored him. At last, with deep compassion, he tried another way. He knew his children loved toys of all kinds. So he shouted, "Come outside. I have wonderful carts waiting for you. Goat carts, deer carts, ox carts. They are more beautiful than anything you have ever seen." At once, the children's eyes lit up. They dropped their old toys and rushed outside, eager to see the promised carts. And so they escaped the burning house. When they were safe, the father gave them not just small carts, but great and magnificent ones, strong, adorned, drawn by powerful oxen. These were gifts far greater than he had promised. The Buddha paused and said, "So it is with beings. The world is like a burning house. Fire surrounds it, fire of greed, fire of anger, fire of ignorance. People play with their toys, chasing pleasure and distraction, not seeing the danger. They laugh, unaware that suffering closes in." He looked upon his disciples with tender eyes. Out of compassion, the Tathagata calls them. Sometimes he uses simple promises, teachings suited to their minds. He may say, "Come, there is safety, there is joy, there is peace." They listen, they come, they are saved. And when they step outside, they receive the true gift, the great vehicle of liberation, vast and unshakable. The disciples bowed deeply. They understood that compassion sometimes speaks in the language of desire, not to deceive, but to guide. The promise of small carts was a skillful means to lead toward the greater gift of freedom. Dear friend, this parable is for us as well. How often do we play with toys, distractions, possessions, fleeting pleasures, while the fires of life burn around us? We cling to what cannot last, blind to the truth that all things change. Yet compassion calls us, gently but firmly, saying, "Come out. There is something greater. there is freedom. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale compassion. Exhale attachment. With each inhale, imagine leaving behind the toys of distraction. With each exhale, imagine stepping out into the fresh air of freedom. Breathing in, you are safe. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight, there are things you hold tightly: worries, possessions, habits, identities. Let this story remind you the house is burning. To cling is to suffer. To let go is to live. Compassion offers you a greater gift beyond all you imagine. Rest here for a while. Breathing in, you walk outside. Breathing out, you stand free beneath the open sky. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When they saw people lost in distractions, they remembered the burning house. They did not scorn, but spoke with compassion, offering words suited to each heart, guiding gently toward freedom. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself stepping out of the burning house. The air is cool, the sky vast. The fire behind you fades. Before you stands a great cart, strong and steady, waiting to carry you to peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the lotus in the mud, showing how purity and awakening can bloom even from the depths of suffering. The lotus in the mud. One quiet morning, the Buddha and his disciples walked along a forest path. The sun was just rising, casting a golden glow upon the earth. Birds sang softly in the branches, and the air was fresh with dew. As they walked, they came upon a pond. The water was still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. From the surface rose lotus flowers, some still in tight buds, some half open, and some fully bloomed, their petals white and radiant above the muddy water. The Buddha paused, gazing at the flowers. His disciples gathered around him, waiting in silence. The moment felt sacred, as though the flowers themselves carried a teaching. At last, the Buddha spoke. Look at these lotuses. Their roots lie deep in mud, yet their blossoms rise unstained, shining above the water. So too it is with human life. Though beings are born in the mud of greed, anger, and ignorance, from that very mud can arise wisdom and compassion. To help his disciples understand, the Buddha told them a story. In a distant village, there lived a young man named Aruna. His village was known for disorder. People drank heavily, quarreled daily and wasted their time in idleness. As a child, Aruna saw violence in the streets, heard curses in the night, and grew up believing that such was the way of life. He followed the ways of his neighbors, drinking with them, fighting with them, chasing after fleeting pleasures. His life became entangled in suffering, his heart restless and weary. He felt as though he lived in mud, unable to rise. One evening, after a quarrel, Aruna wandered aimlessly. His steps brought him near a monastery. From within, he heard the chanting of monks, soft, rhythmic, peaceful. It touched something deep in him. He returned the next day, and again the day after. At last, he asked a monk, "Can someone like me, born in filth, ever walk the path of peace?" The monk smiled gently and pointed to the lotus pond nearby. Even the lotus blooms in the mud. Without the mud, there can be no lotus. So too, your past need not bind you. It can nourish the compassion that grows in you. Encouraged, Aruna began with small steps. One mindful breath, one kind word, where once he would have shouted, one day without drink. The mud that had trapped him became the soil from which new strength arose. In time, his anger softened, his mind cleared, and he became known not for fighting, but for kindness. His life, once tangled in mud, bloomed like a lotus, rooted in darkness, yet radiant in purity. The Buddha looked at the pond again and said to his disciples, "Monks, see how some lotuses remain closed in bud. Some rise half open, and some blossom fully. So it is with beings. Some remain in ignorance. Some begin to rise, touched by light, and some bloom in full awakening. Yet all share the same root, the same water, the same possibility. Do not despise the mud. Without mud, no lotus could bloom." The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts moved. They understood that suffering itself can be transformed into the foundation of awakening. Dear friend, this parable is for us too. We may feel caught in mud, mistakes we regret, fears we cannot release, pain that seems endless. Yet the Buddha reminds us, the mud does not stain the lotus. It nourishes it. Your struggles, your wounds, your past, they can feed the growth of compassion and wisdom within you. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale possibility. Exhale despair. With each breath in, imagine roots drawing nourishment from the mud. With each breath out, imagine a lotus rising higher, petals unfolding in the light. Breathing in, you are nourished by life itself. Breathing out, you bloom into peace. Perhaps tonight you feel heavy, weighed down by sorrow. Let this story cradle you. Your pain is not wasted. It can be the soil of your compassion. Your mud is not your prison. It is your beginning. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you feel the mud beneath you. Breathing out, you open into light. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When they saw people lost in wrongdoing, they did not condemn, but whispered, "From this mud, a lotus may grow." When they felt doubt about themselves, they looked inward and trusted that their own blossoms would one day rise. So tonight, let this story soothe you. Imagine yourself as a lotus rising from dark water. The mud is beneath you, but it does not bind you. Your petals open slowly, touched by moonlight. You are pure. You are whole. You are free. Now, dear friend, let us move onward. Ahead lies another parable, the story of salt in water, showing how a narrow heart magnifies suffering, but a vast heart transforms it into peace. The salt in water. One afternoon, the disciples sat with the Buddha beneath the wide branches of a banyan tree. The air was warm, the sound of cicadas filled the forest, and the river nearby flowed gently, carrying the golden reflections of the sun. Among the monks was a young disciple, troubled and weary. He bowed deeply and said, "Blessed One, my mind is restless. Every small pain feels like a heavy burden. A single insult stings me for days. A small disappointment feels like a mountain. I know suffering is part of life, but my heart is too small to bear it. How can I live without being crushed by bitterness?" The Buddha looked at him with compassion. Then he said, "Go, fetch a handful of salt." The disciple obeyed, puzzled, and returned with coarse grains shining in his palm. "Now," said the Buddha, "place the salt into this small cup of water and drink." The disciple dropped the salt into the cup, stirred, and took a sip. His face twisted. "It is bitter, Master. The water cannot be drunk." The Buddha nodded gently. "Now take the same salt and throw it into the river." They walked together to the flowing stream. The disciple cast the salt into the water, where it vanished at once. The Buddha said, "Now drink from the river." The disciple bent down, scooped water in his hands, and drank. His eyes widened. "It is fresh, Master. It tastes pure. I do not notice the salt at all." The Buddha smiled. "So it is with suffering. The same salt, sorrow, anger, pain, can make life bitter if your heart is small, like a cup. But if your heart is vast like a river, the bitterness dissolves and life remains sweet. Do not ask for a world without salt. Ask instead for a heart wide as the river. To make this clearer, the Buddha told another story. Long ago, there was a woman who lost her only child. Her grief was unbearable. At first, her heart was small, like a cup. Every memory pierced her. Every sound reminded her of her loss. She could not breathe without tasting the salt of sorrow. But over time, she opened her heart. She began to care for other children in her village, feeding them, holding them, listening to their laughter. She shared her grief with mothers who had also wept, and together they comforted one another. Slowly, her heart widened. The salt of her sorrow remained, but it dissolved into the river of compassion. Her life became sweet again, not because the salt was gone, but because her heart had grown vast enough to hold it. The young disciple bowed with tears in his eyes. Blessed One, I understand. I cannot stop harsh words or losses from coming, but I can make my heart wide like a river. The Buddha touched his shoulder and said softly, yes. Practice kindness, patience, and mindfulness. Each breath widens the river. Each act of compassion makes space for sorrow to dissolve. Dear friend, this parable is also for us. How often do small troubles feel overwhelming? A word, a mistake, a worry can turn bitter when our hearts are narrow. But when we open, when we breathe deeply, when we expand in compassion, life becomes like the river. The salt is still there, but the water remains fresh. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale spaciousness. Exhale tightness. With each inhale, imagine your heart expanding wide, like the river flowing endlessly. With each exhale, imagine the grains of salt dissolving, vanishing into the vastness. Breathing in, you are open. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight you carry bitterness that feels too heavy. Let this story remind you, you do not need to remove all salt from life. You need only become the river. Your heart can grow vast, wide enough to hold sorrow without being broken by it. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you widen your heart. Breathing out, you taste the sweetness of peace. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When sorrow came, they did not curse the salt. They widened their hearts, and the salt dissolved. They became rivers of compassion, flowing gently through the world. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself as a wide river flowing beneath the moonlight. The salt of suffering touches you. but cannot make you bitter. You remain calm, vast, serene. You are the river. You are peace. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the cowherd and the river, showing how wise guidance helps us cross safely from confusion to clarity. The cowherd and the river. One bright morning, the disciples gathered beneath a banyan tree to hear the Buddha speak. The air was cool, and in the distance, the sound of rushing water echoed through the valley. A wide river flowed nearby, its surface glimmering beneath the sunlight. The current was swift, carrying leaves and branches downstream, its depths unknown. The Buddha gazed toward the river, then turned to his disciples and said, "The journey of practice is like crossing such a river. Let me tell you a parable. Long ago, there lived a cowherd in a small village beside a great river. Each day, he tended his herd with patience and love. The cows were his family, his livelihood, his constant companions. But the richest pastures lay not on his side of the river, but across it, where the grass was tall and green, where fruit trees shaded the fields. The river, however, was wide and dangerous. Its currents could sweep away even the strongest animal. Rocks lay hidden beneath the surface, sharp and treacherous. The cowherd knew that without guidance, his herd would be lost. So he studied the river. He walked its banks, listening to the water, learning where the current was calm and the stones were steady. He marked a place where the crossing was safest. When the time came, he did not drive his herd recklessly into the water. First, he chose the strongest and most experienced cattle to step in, testing the path. Slowly, he led them across, guiding them with calm voice and steady hand. Then, one by one, he brought the others, always keeping them close, always watching that none strayed. The younger calves trembled with fear, but the cowherd walked beside them. When one stumbled, he lifted it gently, encouraging it onward. Stroke by stroke, step by step, the herd crossed. At last, they reached the far shore, where grass grew thick and the fields stretched wide beneath the sun. The herd thrived under his care, and the villagers praised him, saying, "This man is wise. He knows the river, and he guides his herd with love. Because of him, they live in safety." The Buddha looked upon his disciples and said, "So it is with beings. The world is like the river, swift with desire, deep with ignorance, filled with dangers unseen. Alone, one may stumble, be swept away, and never reach the far shore of peace. But when there is a wise guide, one who knows the path. Then even the weakest can cross. The teacher is the cowherd. The Dharma is the safe crossing. The community is the herd traveling together. In this way, step by step, all may reach the far shore of liberation. The disciples bowed deeply. Their hearts were filled with gratitude, for they understood that the Buddha himself was their cowherd, guiding them across the river of samsara toward the pasture of peace. Dear friend, this parable is for us too. Life often feels like a river, uncertain, rushing, filled with obstacles. Alone, it is easy to be swept away by fear, anger, or confusion. But when we walk with guidance, through teachings, through wise voices, through companions on the path, we find safety. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale trust. Exhale fear. With each inhale, imagine standing at the river's edge, calm and steady. With each exhale, imagine a wise guide taking your hand, leading you safely across. Breathing in, you are supported. Breathing out, you are safe. Perhaps tonight, you feel caught in currents, worries pulling you, regrets dragging you under. Let this story remind you, you are not alone. There are guides who walk before you, companions who walk beside you. The river may be strong, but with wisdom and compassion, you will cross. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you feel guidance. Breathing out, you step upon safe ground. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When they guided others, they remembered the cowherd. They did not push harshly, but led gently, patiently, step by step. They kept the herd together, knowing that no one should be left behind. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself crossing a great river. The water rushes, but you are calm. A wise guide leads the way. The herd moves together, and at last you step onto the far shore, where fields of peace stretch endlessly beneath the morning sun. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the empty boat, teaching us to release anger when we see that often there is no one to blame. The empty boat. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the hills, the Buddha and his disciples walked to the banks of a wide, calm river. The air was cool, filled with the scent of water lilies. Birds circled above, their calls fading as they returned to their nests. The disciples sat on the grass, listening to the steady sound of flowing water. The Buddha gazed upon the river and said, "Monks, let me tell you a parable about anger. Long ago, there lived a man who loved to row his small boat. Each morning, he would set out upon the river, letting the current carry him while the sun rose behind the hills. The water soothed him, and he felt peace as he drifted across the shining surface. But one day, as he rowed gently downstream, he saw another boat coming toward him. It drifted quickly, straight along his path. "Turn aside," he shouted. "Watch where you are going." But the boat did not move. Closer and closer it came. Anger rose in his chest. He shouted louder, "Are you blind? You will crash into me." Still, the boat came on. At last, it collided with his own. The man stood, furious, ready to curse whoever sat within. But when he looked, he saw the boat was empty. It had broken free from its rope and was drifting, carried only by the current. In that instant, his anger vanished. There was no one to blame, no insult, no intention against him. His fury dissolved like mist under the morning sun. He sat back down, laughing at himself, feeling lighter than before. The Buddha looked at his disciples. So it is with life. When you think someone has wronged you, you grow angry, ready to strike back. But often, the boat is empty. The event has no captain. It drifts by the force of conditions, causes and effects woven together. To cling to anger is to waste your strength shouting at an empty boat. See clearly, and your anger will dissolve. The monks bowed, their hearts touched by the teaching. Dear friend, this parable is for us as well. How often do we shout at empty boats? A word spoken harshly, a mistake made, an accident on the road. We rush to blame, believing someone meant us harm. Yet much of life drifts without intention. Situations arise from countless causes: fear, ignorance, chance, not from malice. When we see this, our anger fades. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale calm. Exhale anger. With each breath in, imagine yourself drifting gently on a wide river. With each breath out, imagine an empty boat passing silently by. Breathing in, you see clearly. Breathing out, you let go. Perhaps tonight, anger lingers in your heart. Perhaps you feel wronged by another, or by yourself, or by life itself. Let this story remind you, many boats are empty. Life flows with causes and conditions. Blame is often an illusion. Release it, and you will find peace. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you are calm as the river. Breathing out, you are free of anger. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When anger rose within them, they recalled the empty boat. They breathed, they smiled, they released. No longer did they waste their voices shouting at what had no captain. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself on a river at dusk. The sky glows with fading light. The water is calm. An empty boat drifts near, touches yours gently, then floats away. You smile, untroubled. Your heart is light as the evening breeze. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the snake and the rope, teaching us how fear dissolves when we see clearly what is true. The snake and the rope. One quiet evening, twilight settled over the monastery. The sky turned from gold to violet, and shadows stretched long across the earth. The disciples gathered around the Buddha, their robes rustling softly in the evening breeze. Among them sat a young monk, his face pale, his eyes uneasy. He bowed and said, "Blessed One, fear follows me everywhere." At night, the sound of wind in the trees makes me tremble. A shadow on the path fills me with dread. Even when there is no danger, my heart beats as if there were. How can I be free from this fear that has no cause? The Buddha gazed at him with compassion. After a moment of silence, he said, "Let me tell you a parable. Once, in a small village, a man walked home late at night. The moon was hidden by clouds, and the road was dim. The forest pressed in close, and the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves echoed in his ears. As he walked, he saw something lying across the path. It was long, coiled, dark. His heart froze. A snake, he thought. Terror seized him. He stepped back, his breath shallow, his body trembling. He imagined fangs flashing, venom dripping, death rushing upon him. He dared not move forward, dared not pass. Minutes felt like hours. His fear grew larger than the night itself. At last, the clouds parted and the moonlight fell upon the path. The object came into clearer view. To his shock, it was not a snake at all, but a rope left behind by a farmer carrying bundles of wood. The man laughed aloud, though his body still shook. All his fear had come not from the rope, but from his mind. The danger had never been real. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "So it is with many of our fears. We see a rope and believe it to be a snake. We mistake shadows for threats, illusions for truths. Fear is born not from reality, but from the ignorance of our own minds. When wisdom shines, fear dissolves. What was once a snake is revealed as a rope." The disciples listened in silence, their hearts struck by the truth. To make his point clearer, the Buddha shared another image. Imagine a traveler lost in the desert. From afar, he sees what appears to be an oasis, a shimmering pool of water. He runs toward it with desperate thirst, only to find sand and heat. The water was a mirage, created by light and distance. So too are many of our fears, mirages of the mind. We suffer from what is not truly there. The monks bowed, understanding more deeply. Dear friend, this parable is also for us. How often do we suffer from snakes that are only ropes? We fear the future before it arrives. We tremble at memories of the past. We imagine dangers greater than they truly are. Most of our suffering is not from what is real, but from what we believe. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale clarity. Exhale fear. With each inhale, imagine moonlight breaking through clouds. With each exhale, imagine the snake fading, the rope revealed. Breathing in, you see clearly. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps tonight, your heart is troubled by shadows, an uncertain tomorrow, an old regret, a whisper of fear. Let this story remind you, not every shadow hides danger. Not every rope is a snake. With wisdom, you see clearly. With clarity, fear dissolves. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you shine the light of awareness. Breathing out, you release the grip of fear. The disciples who heard this parable carried it with them always. When fear arose, they paused. They looked again. They asked, "Is this truly a snake or only a rope?" And with clear vision, their fears dissolved like mist under the morning sun. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path under the moon. You see something dark ahead, but instead of trembling, you breathe. The moonlight grows brighter, and the rope is revealed. You smile, calm, steady, free. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the drifting log, showing us how a heart free of clinging will always find its way to the ocean of peace. The drifting log. One morning, the Buddha and his disciples walked along the banks of the sacred Ganges. The air was cool, touched by mist rising from the water. Birds wheeled overhead, calling softly. The river itself moved with calm strength, its surface glimmering in the early light, its current flowing steadily toward the ocean. The Buddha paused, looking at a log drifting gently with the stream. He turned to his disciples and said, "Monks, do you see that log? If it does not catch on either bank, if it is not lifted by humans, if it is not seized by spirits, if it does not sink from rot within, then surely it will reach the great ocean. So it is with one who follows the Dharma. If he does not cling, if he does not resist, he too will reach Nibbana." To help them understand, the Buddha told a story. Long ago, there lived a hermit who built his hut beside a wide river. Each day, he watched the current, learning its moods. He saw branches float by, carried effortlessly toward the sea. He saw logs that drifted freely, and others that became trapped, snagged by roots, caught in whirlpools, or lodged against rocks. One evening, after his meditation, the hermit dreamed he had become a log himself. The water carried him gently at first, rocking him like a cradle. He felt light, supported, safe. But as he drifted, he came too near the bank. Reeds and roots caught him. He struggled to pull free, but the more he thrashed, the tighter the grip became. Fear filled him. Would he rot here, never reaching the sea? Then, in his dream, he let go of struggle. The current shifted, freed him from the reeds, and once again carried him forward. The river seemed to whisper, "Trust me, do not cling." He awoke with tears in his eyes, his heart overflowing with understanding. From that day, he taught all who came to him, "Be like the drifting log. Do not cling to the banks. Trust the river, and you will reach the ocean." The Buddha looked upon his disciples and explained, "The near bank is desire, attachment to pleasure, wealth, and comfort. The far bank is rigid views and pride in knowledge. To be taken by humans is to be enslaved by worldly demands. To be seized by spirits is to be trapped by superstition and fear. To rot from within is to be consumed by doubt, laziness, or arrogance. Monks, do not cling to either bank. Do not allow yourselves to be carried off. Do not decay from within. Float freely in the current of Dharma, and you will surely reach the ocean, peace." The disciples bowed deeply, their minds filled with the image of the drifting log. Dear friend, this parable is for us too. How often do we cling to banks of our own, to possessions, to identities, to fears, to regrets? How often are we pulled away by the demands of others or trapped by our own doubts? The Buddha reminds us, we need not fight the river. We need only let go. Trust the flow, and it will carry us home. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale, letting go. Exhale, clinging. With each breath in, imagine yourself as a log, resting gently upon the water. With each breath out, imagine the current carrying you safely forward. Breathing in, you trust the flow. Breathing out, you let go. Perhaps tonight, you feel stuck, caught by worries, regrets, or expectations. Let this story remind you, you do not need to struggle. The river of life is already moving, already guiding you. Release the reeds, release the rocks, release the fear, float freely, and the current of compassion will carry you toward peace. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you drift easily. Breathing out, you merge with the ocean of calm. The disciples who heard this parable never forgot it. When temptation pulled them toward desire, they remembered the log. When pride tempted them to cling to knowledge, they remembered the log. When doubts arose, they remembered the log. And in remembering, they released. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself drifting under the moonlight, carried by a gentle river. You do not cling. You do not resist. The water carries you steadily, endlessly, until at last you merge with the vast ocean of stillness, infinite and free. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies another parable, the story of the mirror and the dust, reminding us that our true nature shines bright, though it may be hidden until we gently wipe away illusions. The mirror and the dust. One clear morning, the Buddha and his disciples sat in the monastery garden. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, scattering patterns of gold upon the ground. Birds sang softly, and the air was fresh with the scent of jasmine. The monks sat quietly, their bowls resting beside them, waiting for the Blessed One to speak. The Buddha's eyes moved gently over the assembly. Then he said, "Monks, within each of you is a nature that is bright, pure, and unchanging. Yet often it is hidden from sight. Let me tell you a parable. Long ago, a great king possessed a mirror unlike any other. Crafted from flawless crystal, it was so clear that when polished, it could reflect the entire sky, clouds drifting, stars shining, even the full moon. The mirror was placed in the royal palace as a treasure beyond price. But as years passed, the mirror was neglected. Servants placed it in a storeroom where dust began to gather. At first, a thin layer dulled its shine. Then more dust settled, mingling with smoke and dampness, hardening over time. Soon, The mirror no longer reflected anything at all. Its surface looked dark and lifeless. Visitors to the palace passed it by, thinking it worthless. One day, a young servant stumbled upon the forgotten mirror. Curious, he wiped a corner with his sleeve. To his surprise, a glimmer of light appeared. Intrigued, he rubbed harder, then fetched cloth and water. Slowly, carefully, he polished the mirror. The more dust he cleared, the brighter it became, until at last the surface shone like the heavens. When he lifted it to the sky, it reflected everything: the sun above, the clouds drifting, the stars yet hidden. The king, seeing this, rejoiced. The mirror was never broken, he said. It was only covered. Its brightness was always there, waiting to be revealed. The Buddha looked at his disciples and said, "So it is with the mind. By nature, it is luminous and pure, able to reflect truth as it is. But when covered by greed, anger, and ignorance, it seems dark, clouded, and dull. Do not mistake the dust for the mirror. The dust can be wiped away. With mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, the mirror of your heart will shine again." The monks bowed deeply, their eyes moist with understanding. To make the lesson clearer, the Buddha told another story. In a nearby village, there lived a woman who had suffered much loss. Her husband had died young, her children had gone hungry, and her heart grew heavy with grief. She believed her life was ruined, her spirit broken beyond repair. "I am nothing but sorrow," she thought. One day, she heard the Buddha's teaching about the mirror and the dust. She began to practice, first with small steps. One mindful breath, one gentle smile, one act of kindness each day. At first, the change was small, yet over weeks and months, her heart grew lighter. The bitterness faded. Compassion bloomed. She realized her suffering had not destroyed her true nature. It had only covered it with dust. By living with awareness, she polished the mirror of her heart until it shone again. Dear friend, this parable is for us too. How often do we believe the dust is who we are? We think we are our anger, our fear, our failures. Yet the Buddha reminds us, these are only dust. Beneath them, your heart is bright. Beneath them, you are whole. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale clarity. Exhale confusion. With each breath in, imagine a gentle cloth wiping dust from a mirror. With each breath out, imagine the surface becoming brighter, shining with light. Breathing in, you touch your true nature. Breathing out, you rest in peace. Perhaps tonight, your heart feels clouded by worry, regret, or doubt. Let this story remind you the dust is not the mirror. Your mistakes, your fears, your grief, they are not your essence. Beneath them, your true self shines, waiting patiently to be revealed. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you polish the mirror. Breathing out, you shine with clarity. The disciples who heard this parable carried it always. When their minds felt dark, they did not despair. They practiced patiently, wiping away the dust. And in time, their hearts reflected the vast sky of wisdom and compassion. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself holding a mirror beneath the night sky. At first, its surface is dull, but with each breath, you polish it gently. Slowly, the dust fades. The mirror clears. At last, it reflects the stars and the moon, infinite and pure. Now, dear friend, let us continue. Ahead lies the final parable, the story of the elephant's footprint, showing that within the Four Noble Truths are gathered all the teachings of the Buddha. The footprint of the elephant. One quiet afternoon, the disciples gathered beneath the shade of ancient trees. The forest around them was alive with gentle sounds. The call of birds, the whisper of wind through branches, the hum of insects in the warm air. After the alms round, the monks sat in a circle, speaking softly among themselves. Some said, "Surely, meditation is the greatest of the Buddha's teachings, for it stills the mind." Others said, "No, it is compassion, for without kindness there is no true practice." Still others argued, "It must be wisdom, for wisdom cuts through ignorance like a blade." When the Buddha approached, they bowed and asked, "Blessed One, which teaching is greatest, which contains all the rest?" The Buddha looked at them with gentle eyes and said, "Monks, let me tell you a parable. In the forests of India, hunters and travelers often tracked animals by their footprints. The marks of deer were light and delicate. The tracks of oxen were broad and steady. The prints of tigers were sharp and fierce. By following these signs, men could know what creature had passed by. But among all animals, none was greater than the elephant. Its footprint was vast, surpassing and covering the tracks of all others. When a hunter found the mark of an elephant pressed into the earth, he knew at once no smaller creature could have left it. In the elephant's footprint, the traces of all other animals could be contained. The Buddha turned to his disciples and said, "So it is with my teachings. Among them all, the Four Noble Truths are like the footprint of the elephant. They hold within them the essence of every teaching, the path to every liberation. To understand them deeply is to hold the whole Dharma. Then he spoke clearly. The first noble truth: life is touched by suffering, birth and death, sickness and aging, sorrow and longing. To live is to meet suffering. The second noble truth: the cause of suffering is craving, the clinging of the mind that grasps at what cannot last. The third noble truth: there is an end to suffering. When craving is released, peace arises. The fourth noble truth: the way to end suffering is the noble eightfold path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These truths, the Buddha said, are the footprint of the elephant. All other teachings, meditation, compassion, wisdom, generosity, are contained within them. To walk in this footprint is to walk the true path. The monks bowed deeply, their hearts filled with clarity. Dear friend, this parable is also for us. Sometimes the path seems vast, with countless teachings, countless practices. We wonder, where should I begin? What matters most? The Buddha reminds us, return to the Four Noble Truths. They are the footprint that holds all others. Begin there, and you are already walking toward freedom. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale clarity. Exhale confusion. With each breath in, imagine the vast footprint of an elephant pressed into soft earth. With each breath out, imagine yourself stepping into it, steady and sure. Breathing in, you walk the true path. Breathing out, you rest in peace. Perhaps tonight, your mind is filled with many worries, many questions. Let this story remind you, you do not need all the answers at once. You need only remember the Four Noble Truths. They are enough. They are the path. They are the footprint of the elephant. Rest here in this truth. Breathing in, you see the path clearly. Breathing out, you are already walking it. The disciples who heard this parable remembered it always. When doubt or confusion arose, they returned to the Four Noble Truths. Like hunters who see the elephant's track, they knew they were on the right path, the surest way to peace. So tonight, let this story cradle you. Imagine yourself in a quiet forest path at dusk. Before you lies a great footprint, vast and steady. You place your feet within it. You smile, knowing that your steps are guided, your journey secure. You are safe. You are walking toward freedom. Now, dear friend, the parables have brought us here, to the heart of the Buddha's path. Ahead lies the closing words, a gentle blessing to carry with you into rest. Dear friend, we have now traveled together through 14 parables of the Buddha. Each story has been like a lantern in the night, shining gently, guiding us step by step along the path. We began with questions and doubts, like a traveler standing before a wide river. We crossed with rafts. We gazed at the moon beyond the finger. We carried lamps through the darkness, and we left the burning house behind. We learned that from mud, a lotus can bloom. We tasted the salt and water, widened our hearts, crossed rivers with gentle guidance, and let empty boats drift by without anger. We saw how ropes mistaken for snakes can terrify us, how logs drift freely when they do not cling, how mirrors grow bright when dust is wiped away, and how the footprint of the elephant gathers all other tracks. These parables remind us that the Dharma is not distant. It is here, in each breath, in each moment of awareness. The teachings are not meant to burden, but to free. They are not heavy chains, but gentle hands, guiding us toward peace. As you rest now, let these lessons settle softly in your heart. You do not need to remember every word. You do not need to carry every image. Like seeds scattered in fertile soil, they will take root on their own. In time, they will bloom as wisdom and compassion within you. Let go of striving. Let go of clinging. You have heard the teachings. Now, let them cradle you. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it softly. Again, inhale peace. Exhale rest. With each breath in, imagine the lamp glowing gently beside you. With each breath out, imagine yourself drifting like the log, carried by the current of compassion. Breathing in, you are safe. Breathing out, you are free. Perhaps your heart still carries burdens, memories, worries, fears. Let them rest for now. You do not need to solve them tonight. You do not need to chase answers. The Buddha reminds us the boat is empty. The dust can be wiped. The lotus will bloom. The path is already beneath your feet. Rest here, dear friend. Rest in the Dharma. The disciples, after hearing the Buddha's parables, often fell silent, their minds calm, their hearts at ease. They sat together in peace, some closing their eyes, letting the teachings drift within them like soft echoes. And so it is with you tonight. You are not alone. Across time and space, countless beings have walked this path, carried by the same current, guided by the same truths. Tonight, you walk with them. Tonight, you rest in their company. So let sleep come gently, like a soft tide upon the shore. Let the breath guide you, like the steady flow of the river. Let the moon watch over you, like the Buddha's compassion shining from afar. The stories are complete. The path is before you, and peace is within you. Rest now. Sleep now. Be free.